Hello and welcome to another Talking Faith, a weekly devotional that Cam and I have been putting out, where we just spend time discussing through elements of our faith, how God has been working in our life over the last week or two. We hope that through this that you're encouraged to do the very same, to have conversations with friends and family about your faith, how God is moving you forward. We highly urge you to sit down with a cup of tea or coffee and join us as we discuss faith together. So Callum, what's been on your mind over the last week or two?
Well, I guess for me, what's been on my mind, I guess, has been the mind itself. By that, I'm thinking more in regards to mental health. It's just something I've been kind of reflecting on, very aware of. Thankfully, we are in a day and age where the understanding, the awareness of mental health, the acceptance of mental health issues is a much better place than it maybe once was in culture and society. But still, I think there is an air of taboo about even having a conversation about mental health, when actually there's many people, even within our local community, who struggle with the challenges that come alongside mental health. And I think it's one of those ones that's interesting because when someone's maybe ill or injured and the symptoms are physical, it can maybe... sometimes it can feel like it's easier to empathize. You can see the physical ailment, you can imagine what that would be, you can clearly see the issue. But the reality often with mental health is that the symptoms are behavioral. They come across in different actions and behaviors that maybe aren't quite what the person normally would do or act, or there's a reclusive nature, or there's a whole variety of things that come into play. And I know that, at least in my experience, sometimes people can be quick to tell you to stop doing that bad behaviour, or if you just don't do that thing that's coming across behaviourally, that'll fix it. When in reality, just like with physical ailments, the symptom is not the root problem, and it's not the root challenge that the person is trying to overcome. So I guess being aware of these sort of challenges, I think particularly as Christians, as we look to be good neighbours to one another, to show compassion, to show love, to show care, being aware of that and being understanding is really, really integral for us.
I think, as you said, it's very easy when we can empathise with someone to understand what they're going through, but if you can't see fully what they're going through, it's kind of hard to truly empathise with them. So there's almost a calling for us to try a little bit harder to seek opportunities to empathise with people that are struggling with mental health issues. And what about yourself? Do you have any experience in this field?
Yeah, I can, I guess, unfortunately say that I have a fair amount of experience, both personally, but also firsthand, but then also watching on with people that I love and care for. My own experience, I was diagnosed with depression many years ago now. It's something that I've lived with for the vast majority of my life. To be honest, even before I was diagnosed, it was something I was aware of. And it's interesting looking back. There are, for me, kind of peaks and troughs of life, and particularly in the earlier days, in my kind of younger, maybe more naive self, I don't think I was very able or prepared to deal with it. And I look back, and those are probably some of the most chaotic moments of my life. And there's things in that where I can't necessarily blame depression for all my bad decisions in my younger years, but it was definitely an underlying factor, whether it be vices that I may have danced into was actually just a form of escapism for me not understanding my own mind, or just reclusiveness and wanting to get away and hide from the world for as long as I possibly could. And it obviously, it kind of created a situation where life might be going okay, and then suddenly I'd almost plummet off a cliff, and then I'd learn to stabilize again, and then it was a very up and down kind of tossed on a wave sort of affair. I'm thankful to say that for me and for my experience, over time I've learned to know my own mind a bit better, preempt when I feel like I'm getting worse or when I'm kind of starting to crash, to put in place routines and structure alongside medical help to make sure that that isn't the case anymore. I'm thankful to say it's been a long time since it's been quite that extreme up and down. There is still maybe gentler valleys and hills and stuff like that, but nonetheless it's nowhere near the levels that once it was for my life. But then on the other hand, I've also experienced it with loved ones and people that I care about. From my mother, who I kind of spent a long time with in my youth, trying to support as best as I could, through to a close friend of mine who actually just about a month after I started here in Kellerman committed suicide. And completely unexpectedly. One of those times, I guess, where it wasn't talked about, where I don't think anyone had any idea of the mental health struggles that he was dealing with, and it kind of exposed itself all of a sudden and dramatically and somewhat traumatically to friends and to family. So it's a real reality for so many people, and I think it's important that we have conversations to be aware of it, to be aware of the issues that we struggle with, and to be aware of the issues that others are struggling with around us.
I think talking is so crucial just in general to let people understand how you're feeling. And I assume as a teenager, teenager is already quite a difficult time of life, so having that extra pressure obviously must have made that a lot harder. So I assume there must have been like places in scripture that you'd have went to that maybe helped you. Is there anything you turned to?
I mean, there's multiple. I mean, one of them, the simplest ones, is just the phrase "Jesus wept." As absurd as that may sound, the notion of God understanding emotional struggle is a really powerful statement. And that in itself has a lot of weight to it. But beyond that as well, there's a point where Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And I think that, for me, is one that I've always resonated on. It's one of the things that I know in my own experience with mental health, that it's really hard to rest. Like I can, particularly in the worst of it, thankfully it's not really the reality for me in the everyday anymore, but there was, particularly in the worst of the times, I could spend days in bed, just hiding from the world, but not remotely resting. But actually that understanding that when we come to Jesus, that's somewhat of a little bit of a hobby horse of mine when it comes to faith, but be honest in prayer, actual honesty with God about what's going on in our lives. And that understanding with him, that is the starting point to us gaining true rest. And while I don't necessarily expect to ever be healed from the mental health struggles that I have, it's definitely one of those key elements that helps me live in the day-to-day when it comes to a relationship with Jesus and how integral that is foundationally. But I think it also gives us a picture as Christians for what we can be to others, to be that place where people can come, they can share, they can be honest with what they're dealing with, that we can be that sense and that place of support and understanding, to not necessarily just presume because we see a behaviour that that's the underlying root issue, and to, where we can, show patience and consideration and just that good neighbourhood to those around us, which I think is so integral and so important. And I guess it's worth saying, like, I'm just sharing a little of my experience. I'm not a medical professional. This is, and I would really strongly, wholeheartedly encourage anyone who is struggling with mental health issues to make sure you speak with doctors or the appropriate professionals who, for me, have made a huge difference as well along the way, have been integral to my learning to live with the kind of reality of my own mind that's going on there. But yeah.
And I think we all either know someone or are the person that has some form of mental health difficulties, and I think that's so crucial for us to sort of make a step out to try help people that are kind of maybe struggling during this time, especially when isolation is quite high at the moment. It's a good opportunity to be that good neighbour that you were discussing 2 weeks ago, to be Jesus to other people and to just open up to them. Yeah, that's good. So hopefully you've managed to draw something from this for your own walk with the Lord, and for maybe even the walk even with your friends and family's walk with the Lord. Hopefully this could be something that can encourage you as you tackle this week ahead. Have a good day.